Hi, everybody. I'm here with Ron Simoncini. By the way, Ron, I love that last name. It's
Thank
like
you.
it's like two last names, Simon and
You'd be surprised how many times someone will say, "Mr. Cini," and I'll be like, "No, I'm not giving you my middle name, Simon. I'm Ron Simoncini."
Oh, wow.
It
See
happens a
that?
lot. Happens all the time.
So, Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good, very
Thank
good.
you so much for
So,
having me on. I hope you don't regret it later, but I'm looking forward to
I
talking.
I hope not, but guess what? Then I can just delete what I don't like what you say. How about that? So, Ron, how old are you?
I turned 63 in March.
63 in March. Okay, so we're almost in that senior citizen mode,
Bite your tongue, young lady.
right? No, because you don't feel like a senior citizen.
No,
You don't look
no.
like right. That's the whole thing. You don't look like a senior citizen or older, I should say. I mean, I would have say you're like 50, really. And it's just strange those numbers that mean so much uh to everyone.
I think they mean a little bit I think they mean something different now. And in the way that you talk about it and the way that I talk to people, to my peers, the people who are being really productive and are really relevant are not saying, "I wanna retire at 65 or 70," or putting a number on it. What they're really saying is, "I wanna maintain my relevance." I'm interpreting it that way, and I say it that way out loud. Um, I have a lot going on that I'm enjoying doing. It's not
Right.
about how old I am. That doesn't determine my ability to be productive or work. And it's also not about the money because if I didn't want to work, I wouldn't have to work. But the things that I'm doing are so engaging and stimulating, I wouldn't think of stopping. Why would
Right.
I not have a dynamic, enjoyable, stressful, crazy day when I can? I would never change that
Right.
for, you know, sitting on my couch or even traveling because I do find that, the work you do is way more fun than the fun you have. And so I want to keep that vibe going while it's still available to me. That doesn't mean that tomorrow or next year or 2 years from now, I might say, you know what? I've done what I want to do. I want to move on to do other things. But don't think that will mean repose for me. I think it'll be using energy in another way.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's important. I mean, I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for over 40 years, and I always like to ask people how they feel, what's their biological age. Your biological age could be 45, you know? Uh, but how do you stay healthy? What are you doing to stay
I
healthy?
mean, I'll give you the why I'm not healthy. I go out a lot, a lot.
Okay.
And, I do that because I enjoy it. I do it because it's great for business. I do it because I'm part of a community and I see my work life as having built a community around what I do. And I want to be in that community. And
Right.
so I'm out a lot. And when I'm out, I don't mind
Yeah.
telling you, I don't order the salmon. So,
Yeah. You don't order the salmon like I order the salmon. I'm like,
no,
oh
I'm
my,
not
okay,
having the salmon.
salmon.
I'm
Yeah.
having the stuffed pork chop. And, if dessert's available, I don't want to disappoint my host. So
Right.
I'll have a little of that.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's
Right.
the bad side of it
More
is like
recent. Yeah.
this way of life,
What?
uh, there's a lot
Yeah.
of intake.
It's
Now on the other side of it, I'm the chairman of a YMCA, and I have a personal trainer there, and I go 3 times a week. And so while I'm a big old load, while I'm a roaming tank there, I actually am getting in
right.
a lot of exercise, and I feel like I'm actually pretty fit.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, as long as you're seeing someone, you're doing something about it, you're trying to balance your work and your the way you work and the way you have to go out and entertain people. That's part of your job. And that's what makes it difficult for a lot of white collar jobs or people who are CEOs or, in your position. It's hard. It's hard to maintain.
I see a lot of them though, and a lot of them have actual self-control, which has eluded me for 63 years. And, they view it differently and they do it differently, and
Right.
I could learn a little bit from that, but, I feel pretty good, so I'm gonna go with that as my guiding sorta light, do what makes me
Right.
feel good, and,
Yeah.
there's times when I gotta back off and take a little bit of a break, and then, the other times when my pedal's to the metal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, it's very difficult these days because everything is right there at our fingertips, right? We can get anything we want, we can drink anything we want. I know it's very difficult, but it's 44% of American men skip going to their doctor for their annual checkups. I mean, that's a high statistic. So at
Yeah,
least I hope that you're seeing your doctor.
no, I didn't go for about 15 years, and, I went, maybe if I had the flu or whatever, I might go to the little urgent care. Last year, I decided I would be part of an executive health program, and I took it very seriously. The guy did a workup. It took 6 hours to test every single
Wow.
thing, and I got
Wow.
a very good baseline, and there were a couple things that needed to be changed,
Yeah, yeah,
and it gave me something to address, and since then, I've been a little bit more diligent. Um, you just can't be devil may care with these things when you're this age. If you wanna extend your life, you gotta pay attention. So,
that's right,
I got on the rovastatin and deal with cholesterol issues. There was nothing tragic, but I agree with
right.
you. And then, of course, as parents, we're telling our children all the time, "Hey, get to the doctor, get to the dentist," and they look
That's
at
right.
you and say, "Wait a minute, when's the last time you went?"
Exactly, exactly. Talking about children, you have children, I have children, we have young adult children, and you have 2 boys and a daughter, correct?
Yep. Our
I
daughters, I
happen to
think,
have
went to
one of
school
each.
together.
That's right, that's right. And, it's very frightening out there what is happening with the economy and what's happening, in America right now, but I did wanna talk to you about the economic pressure that these young adults are having these days, and the next generation. I mean, they're how they're thinking about buying a home, how they thinking about having a family, how they thinking about supporting, their family, how many children can they have, because of the economic times and the pressure, there is and in what's happening right now. Is AI gonna take my job? I mean, that's a very, very big concern that I talk to a lot of young adults, and I talk to my son. I mean, will AI one day take my son's job or your son's job? You know, uh, we're not going to need 10 paralegals when 2 paralegals can do the job with the AI and take care of 10.
Yeah, yeah. No,
We're not going to need a
on
lot of
that
white
side,
collar jobs that our children are doing.
contract creation is, gonna be a thing of the past. There'll be standard contracts and clauses that can be drawn in from other documents. You'll still need a human review of those things, but the creation, I think, there's going to be an awful lot of productivity advancement as a result of AI in a lot of look in a lot of businesses. In my business, in the PR business, you know, I've got a little resentment over this because we have a certain style to our press releases and the way that we generate content, and that's all online. And AI now can go online and look at my 40 years worth of content development and craft a press release the way that I would craft a press release.
Wow.
Um, so, I look at that part of it. Now that's available to me too, right? But it closes the
It is.
gap between me and my competitors. Being able to take my intelligence and reformat it without you actually having that intelligence. I do think that there's a threat there to creativity. I certainly think, though, that on the other side of it, people are hiring me for being able to do unique expression, and AI doesn't do that. And
Right.
so,
Yeah. Right.
there was a time when somebody said, "Oh, I took your memo and I put it through AI." And I said, "I've been
What?
crafting my style for 40 years, and you just took out all the nuance in my style because AI doesn't see that. It sees
Yeah.
it as sort of non-conventional speech." Well, that's what it is. It's non-conventional speech. It's my speech. I own it. I wanna preserve that. but I think there will be fewer and fewer of me, and you'll have to be really good at this to
Mhm.
avoid your content being AI driven.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a scary thing out there, for these young adults, and, how do you prepare these young adults?
Well, if you
How do you prepare them?
look at the break it down. First of all, they make a hell of a lot more money than we ever made, so let's start there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They demand it and they get it. They get better work conditions than we got. Who would have ever thought to say to your boss, "I really need another day at home a week. I need 2 days at home, not 1." Are you kidding me? You're telling me you don't wanna come to your workplace? But
Right.
we take that as a matter of course now. On the
Yeah.
housing front, housing is very, very expensive, right? So, I take what you're saying to heart. But think about it this way. You and I are someday not gonna need our house, whether that's our choice or because we expire and somebody else takes our place. Somebody's gonna buy that house. So we either have to figure out how to pay these kids enough to buy the house, or we have to recognize that our houses are worth too much and they're gonna be worth less. Now, if I had a bet right now, I'll bet we figure out a way for these kids to afford these houses because none of us are gonna wanna see housing values decline. But housing values are based on demand. Someone has to live in that house. And so in order for them to live in the house, they've got to be able to afford something. And I think that the world is going to lift these children into an ability to buy a house. I couldn't buy my house till I think I was 35 when I bought my first house, 36. I fully expect my 32-year-old to be able to buy a house by the time he's that age. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. No. My son has come to the agreement, and we've had this talk, that he's very aware that if he wants the size of home he wants, or if he wants some land, he is very aware that he will not be able to stay in this area. And he's being realistic about it, because 'cause we've talked to him about it.
but that's part of life too. Like, look, y you so I've worked a lot in rent control environments, and what I see recently is the expectation that there should be an affordable apartment for me in Hoboken, no matter who I am or what I do for a living. That's antithetical to how supply and demand works. Lots of people wanna live in Hoboken. The people who can afford to live in Hoboken bid up the prices there, and that leaves some people out. Not everybody gets to live where they wanna live.
Right.
You made your choice for your career. You have your skill set. That skill set has value. We're not saying you don't get to live anywhere. We're saying you'll get to live where it's appropriate for you based on your financial means. And so I appreciate your son's realism, right? I'm going to be able to live someplace based on a lot of other choices that I make. If my only choice was I want to make as much money as possible to live in the best possible place, that would be a very flat society, right? That would be a
Mhm.
society where you didn't have a lot of artists, you didn't have a lot of musicians, you didn't have school teachers. People are picking their career based on what stimulates them, what satisfies how they want to spend their time. And there is a money coefficient to that, and that's where the budget issues come in. So I think it's interesting that there's that mature conversation. We certainly have it. I think mine sort of fall on the side of I'd like to be more comfortable, and so I'm willing to do a job that I may not be as stimulated by in order to get the financial rewards.
Mhm.
But those are choices that they've made. If they
Yeah.
wanna live in, a studio apartment in Camden County, that's that they that's their choice. They get to decide that. And one of the phrases we use, Tricia, and my family is, "Everybody's on their own trip." So, y I'm not gonna apply what I think is important to you. You don't apply it to me. Go get
That's
what
right.
you want, and that doesn't
That's right.
necessarily mean a big house in Ridgewood.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, let's change the topic a little bit, since we're talking about, I'm in the older business senior concierge service, right? I deal with
Right.
a lot of seniors.
No, I've been fascinated by what you're doing, and I hope you're gonna cover a little bit of that in this conversation.
We're going to cover it right now. We're going to cover it right now, because there's some issues that are coming up right now, and it affects seniors. It affects my seniors, because a lot of my seniors are Medicare. I have a few that are Medicaid. The new tax bill, of course, is going to affect my seniors tremendously, especially the ones on Medicaid. And personally, I'm not in the 1%. I don't know a lot of people who are in the 1%.
I'm not in the
So my
1%.
question is, you know, how are a lot of my seniors and you and me, you said you could retire. A lot of seniors will not be able to retire at 65. They will not be able to retire at 67 or 70. I have seniors that are still 82 years old and still working because they have to work. They have to work. Even though they're on Medicare. Medicare doesn't include vision. It doesn't include hearing aids. It doesn't include dental. I mean, there's a lot of things that the Medicare does not cover that they still have to cover, right? I took a client for a hearing aid, $3,000.
Wow.
And I said, wait a minute, your Medicare is not covering that? Trish, Medicare doesn't cover hearing aids. Wow, okay. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I'm learning what Medicare covers. And, because it's important, because I'm gonna be in that generation soon, that in that category soon. So, the fact that Medicaid is going to be affected, the fact that, it's not Medicare for all yet, even though they tried to pass it, it's, you know, it's disheartening. It's disheartening. So what do you think about what's going on right now with the Medicare, Medicaid, the new bill and how it's gonna affect people, in that generation?
Yeah, I think there's a smokescreen going on that says we need to do this because Medicare and Medicaid are full of fraud. The actual fraud levels in Medicare and Medicaid are de minimis.
Yes,
Um, and
absolutely.
and Medicare provides medical services and administrative costs that are literally 20% of what private insurance provides it at. So if it costs a private insurance company $1 to process your claim, it costs Medicare 20 cents. It's a ridiculous value that our society has created that's very rewarding. And I'm not going to demonize it by saying, well, it's rife with fraud. Are there frauds? Of course, there's frauds.
Course,
Uh,
course.
but you know what to do? Go get the criminal
Minimal, minimal,
and
minimal fraud.
spend your money getting the criminal, not eliminating everybody from the benefit that
Right.
is rational, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have my issue. Like I think it's important that people are able to talk about politics and be doing it in a friendly way. I have things in this administration that I think are very positive and that I'm happy to see them doing. And I have things where I think you guys are full of crap. So, but I don't see how that's different from any other regime. It's just that this one is making some transformations that leave us very unsettled.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how you take 16 million people and reduce their benefits and expect there not to be a consequence. Like
Mhm.
the fact that those people are now going to be unhealthier is going to have a cost. And
That's right.
oftentimes that cost happens in the emergency room of hospitals. If you care for these
Mhm.
people preventatively, they don't end up in the emergency room as much. It's way cheaper to give these people preventive medicine than it is emergency care. And
That's
so
right.
you so what happens then? So
Yeah.
you're gonna reduce the funding to the hospital, but you're gonna insist that the hospital sees the patient whose care you deprived them of, and that's why they end up there. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So, I think these pendulums have been swinging very, very broadly, and this pendulum swinging in a really material way in the other direction from where we were, and it's gonna cause some disruption.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's already gonna cause a disruption with the big flooding that happened in Texas. I mean, they were talking about cutting FEMA when we need FEMA for these disasters that are happening in United States. So I don't believe that we should be cutting anything. Any of these social programs are already in place. The National Weather Service was reduced. Were they going to find out if that had any impact and what happened with the flooding? But to reduce the states to take care of the states on their own, with the federal government not coming in to support, I think that's just ridiculous. That's why we pay federal taxes. For you to say that, "Oh, you states on your own," absolutely not. Then why don't we just cut off, the federal funding, and then we'll just keep the taxes, the states just keep the taxes.
Well,
We'll
New
just keep
Jersey's
the
particularly
taxes.
exposed that way. New Jersey's a net contributor, so we give more to the federal
That's
government than we take back, and we have one of
that's
the
right.
highest personal tax rates in the country. So, if you're gonna deprive us of additional funding and the state needs to make that up by taxing us additionally, you're gonna see a lot of emigration out of New Jersey. Like, you've already seen that. You've already New Jersey le I forget what the statistic was, but New Jersey lost a very large portion of its billionaires, to Florida in the last 10
Oh,
years.
did it?
Um, I I
Well,
forget what the
because of the
stat is,
tax code.
but
Yeah,
we net lost wealth.
yeah.
We net gained people and net lost wealth at the same time. What does that mean? More people means more needed services. Less wealthy people means less taxes collected. It's not a good equation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know, it's a very expensive state to live in, absolutely, absolutely. But, you've helped shape a lot of policy and public affairs in New Jersey,
I
Ron.
mostly get beat, Trish. I try, but, mostly I
What
go down in flames, so,
what issues keep you up at night? Anything in particular right
well,
now?
I do a lot of work in property rights. So, I do a lot of education and public affairs work around rent control, zoning, permitting, economic development, grants. Those are all things of great interest to my clients, and those are all things that I spend a lot of time working on. And it can be in different arenas, right? So I do a lot of advocacy work and trying to create correct policy and policy that stimulates growth. And then on the other side of that, I do a lot of transactional work. So I'm looking to create advantages, create benefits, deliver those consequential benefits back, as in when I am able to bring a company here from another state that creates jobs for us, it creates growth in our economy,
That's
creates fiscal benefits. And so those are all parts of a strategy that tie into a policy that really comes down from the top.
yeah.
Uh, I suppose I've had some pretty good days in creating that sort of. You can close that door too, please. Thank you. In creating that sort of willingness among state and local officials to do things that entice growth and development. But I would say directionally, we're not, as a state, we're not net succeeding. When we start talking about a lot of these rent regulations and affordable housing policies that are in the state that discourage development, let me give you an example in Asbury Park. In Asbury Park, the waterfront is by far the most appealing development opportunity. And for
Mhm.
about 10 years, they developed a lot of the Asbury Park waterfront, about 70% of it. When 30% of it was left, they enacted an affordable housing law that required that any housing built in the waterfront had 20% affordable units. Do you know how many units they've delivered since then? 0. So you've got these big swaths of land in Asbury Park that for
Meaning
some
0, they
reason,
haven't done it, or
not 1
0, they're
unit.
not.
They haven't built 1 unit.
Oh,
So they started off building 3,000 units or whatever it was. It
right,
was a significant number. They changed the policy so that you had to build 20% affordable units.
right.
And since then, no one's built 1 unit. It's 12
Wow,
years. 12 years with no construction. On the
wow,
waterfront in Asbury
wow,
Park,
yeah,
0 units delivered. Well, did did that accomplish anything for affordable housing?
right.
No.
Well, who's doing something about that?
Well, I
Are you
tried.
telling me that no one is oh, you is that you? Is that on you?
Was another
Is that on
another
you,
time where we went down in flames, where we tried to convince them, "Hey, if you only insisted on 10% affordable housing, you'd build a lot more housing and you'd actually yield affordable housing units." And so they kind of play chicken. They're like, "Oh, these developers, they'll figure out how to build housing with 20% affordable set aside." Well, if they could have figured it out, we would have done it within 12 years. So obviously
That's
that's
right.
too many. Obviously that's too much of a set aside. So, at some point, some administration in Asbury Park, not the one that's there now, is going to have to say to themselves, do I want all these fenced in vacant lots on the waterfront in Asbury Park? Or do I want to figure out how economically they can be developed? And so, in terms of my public affairs career, that's the sort of things I work on.
Yeah, and that believe it or not, you just said Asbury Park. We were just at Asbury Park because I just love the boardwalk. I mean, it's a great area, but there are some seedy areas that you have to drive through to get to the boardwalk,
Yeah. Well,
right?
so the west side of Asbury Park is a traditionally black neighborhood. Um, it has a lot of poverty in it. Um, the development in Asbury Park didn't find its way to the west side yet, and I think that there are a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah,
The land area is covered already. No one wants to displace 200 black families so that you could put up a new apartment complex, and so, that's a difficult problem, and those families need services. Uh, there was a
absolutely.
there was a few years ago. I haven't worked in Asbury for a few years. I was so frustrated, I just left, but I if there was a point where, their high school only sent they had a class of, I think, 130, in their high school, and they sent 12 kids to college and only 2 finished.
Mm,
So, the educational situation in Asbury Park is a problem. Um, and they've gotta fix these things. They gotta fix these societal problems there in order for those folks to get their piece, right?
right.
The waterfront's a very different piece, and to your point, you drove through an area that's blighted. You drove through an area that's blighted that 2 blocks away is populated by some of the highest earning people on the planet. Isn't
Right.
that strange?
I think it's like that in a lot of those beach towns, you know? I mean, we have some great beach towns out there. They just have to be I don't know. I'm not in charge. That's not my forte, but I do appreciate the beaches that we have. I do appreciate that they're wonderful and they're kept clean and they're still affordable even though you can go to other beaches and you don't have to pay for other beaches, but okay. Let's talk about the Meadowlands project that you're doing. What are you doing with the World Cup right now? Did I hear something about the World Cup? Are you trying to secure them to coming to New Jersey at the Meadowlands?
No, so the World Cup will be here in 2026.
So it will for sure.
Yes, yes. We were selected 2 Februarys ago, as the host city for the final game,
Okay.
and we have 3 knockout games, which happens after the group games. So the way the World Cup is structured is there are 12 groups of 4 teams. They play a round robin against each other. One team goes on to the next round, and there are a few wild card teams that, based on the points that they score, can make it to the next round. Then that next round is a knockout round. If you play a game and you lose, you're out. And then that goes all the way to the final. So we have this concept called Flag Cities. Flag Cities will be 5 events. They'll take place as pep rallies the day
Oh,
before
okay.
each of the group games. And they'll happen in 5 municipalities in the Meadowlands region. We've already got Sea Caucus and East Rutherford confirmed. We've got 2 other towns that we're negotiating with, and then we'll do a 5th. And at each of these, municipalities, you'll have in their downtown area, a watch party, big screens.
Wow.
We've
Nice.
secured, NBC Telemundo as a sponsor. They're gonna do live
Wow.
activations at each location on the day of each game, and the watch party will be for a game that's happening someplace else. And the people that are gonna come, and I think this is where we've got a unique turn on watch parties. About 50% of the people who come into a region during World Cup never see a game. They come just to be close to their team,
Right.
and in some cases, it's been higher than 50%. So let's say that Peru comes and we have an event the day before their game against Ireland. We're going to have a watch party where we'll invite the cultural organizations from Peru and Ireland to come and join our local people in a town square for a game that they'll watch from another place. And it'll be in anticipation of the game they're going to play against each other the next night. So we'll have traditional entertainment from those countries, traditional food from those countries, and we'll blend that all with a little New Jersey flavor. And we're
Yeah.
really looking forward to how that's going to turn out. And what we'll be capitalizing on there is both people who have tickets for the game the next night, people who don't have tickets for the game the next night can come and join each other in celebration of the fact that we're have so many games here in the Meadowlands region. So we're really looking forward to it. We've got a very, very good uptake from sponsors. I think we're going to end up disappointing a lot of municipalities that would like to hold one of these events because we're
Yeah.
only going to do
Yeah.
5. But what we'll also do, and my client in this case is the Meadowlands Live Convention and Visitors Bureau and the
Mhm.
Meadowlands Regional Chamber. Those 2 organizations are the foundation for a lot of civic activity and business service in the region. And they bring a lot of power into these things and a lot of gravitas.
Yeah.
So on behalf of them, we've set up this event series. The sponsors are again, really enthusiastic. I think we're going to get you know, being able to land NBC Telemundo as your first sponsor is pretty darn good start,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and we'll
But
bring a lot more
Ron,
people.
how are you gonna house all these people? I mean, I know what you're talking about, the Meadowlands. Yeah, I know Sea Caucus is there. I know the hotels that are around there. Not many. I mean, how how are you planning to house all these people who come in for the World Cup?
You unfortunately asked a person who knows way too much about that answer. So
Oh, okay.
there's 12,000 hotel rooms in the Meadowlands region. In adjoining regions, there's another 25,000 hotel rooms, and there's 55,000 hotel rooms in New York. While the
That's true.
hotels will be expensive during that time frame, and it'll be hard to get a room, but I'm confident that we'll be able to house the people who visit here to see these games. Um, and they don't all stay for the entire 6 weeks of the tournament, right?
Right,
They come to see their team, they go home. Maybe if
right.
their team moves on and they're in a knockout game, but there's 9 other cities in North America that are hosting games. And so we're dispersing a lot of the tournament throughout the continent. Um,
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought it was just everything was gonna be just done at the Meadowlands arena. Okay, so I didn't realize this was dispersed in other areas of America.
yeah, so we of the 60, I think there's 63 games in the tournament. We have 9 here. I'm sorry, 8.
Oh,
We have the
okay,
final, 2 knockout games, and 5 group games.
okay. Okay, great. And I'm glad that you're talking with New York, and I'm glad that New York's going to be participating. I'm sure you guys are going to talk about the technical stuff like transportation. I'm sure there's going to be more buses coming in. There's going to be more transportation involved. Okay, I'm sure it's been taken care of, but that's very exciting that the World Cup's going to come too.
Well, the guys in the host committee, are the ones who are responsible for the services that you just
Oh,
described. Um,
okay.
we are collaborating with them. In fact, I was just with them yesterday, and we're gonna come up with a big announcement next week about their first New Jersey sponsor, which happens to be another client of ours, and we're working very closely with them. On the Flag Cities event, we have a very warm relationship. They're not part of that. They have their own, fan fest, which is gonna be in Liberty State Park. And they have a one in Brooklyn. Um, uh, uh, and their fan fest will accommodate 50 to 60,000 people a night. Our events will probably be more in the 10 to 12,000 people a night range.
Yeah.
A little smaller, municipally oriented, letting the local communities feel that connection to the game. Whereas the large events that the host committee is behind, and, and they collect an awful lot of the energy of the game, which they should.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, I wow, I can't believe I'm talking to you about the World Cup because that's so exciting that we're gonna be hosting this right in it's sorta like in our backyard,
They We're not
right?
ready. It's gonna be amazing what happens. So, Trish, you and I have a lot of friends in common. I just wanna make this announcement now.
Yes.
Do not ask me for tickets. I cannot get anyone tickets. No one who's watching this should say to me, "I know Ron Simoncini, he'll get some tickets for us." No, I won't. It's gonna be 10 grand to get into the stadium for the final.
Wow.
Some of the tickets will be $100,000.
Okay, you hear that, everybody? Do not approach Ron Simoncini for tickets.
I'm not
But
gonna be able to go
I
myself,
tell
so
you
I
what I'm
can't
gonna
get you
do. You
tickets.
know what I'm gonna contribute? You know what I'm gonna contribute? I'm gonna have my podcast live. Oh, I'll
Oh, how
be there,
fun. That'll be so fun.
right? I'll be at one of those events. I'll set up a table, I'll have my podcast live, and I'll be bringing in people talking about what's happening.
Well, we definitely need a podcast host, so you're my first
You're
choice.
gonna need
Let's make that deal. Have your
you
agent call
got it.
your agent should call my agent. We'll get that done.
No, I really do have an agent, Ron. Don't say that because I really do. But Ron, you've received so many awards and honors throughout your careers, you know, because 'cause you've been busy with so many different things, in your life, and, which one has meant the most to you?
Um, Last year, I got the Legacy Award, from the Meadowlands YMCA. Have been I was chairman of the Meadowlands YMCA at that point for 11 years. I retired, and then unfortunately, the Y came up against some difficult problems the year that I left. And so, they invited me back in to be chairman, which I accepted. So I spent 1 year of the last 14 not as chairman of the Meadowlands Y. So I'm the chairman again. But when they honored me, they were in the Y was in great shape, and it was a labor of love. When I got to the Y, there were 7 full-time employees, and we had no building. And
Wow.
uh, the community came out to support the concept that the Y should have a building. Now we have an 82,000 square foot fully functional YMCA. It's one of the most beautiful YMCA's you'll ever see. Um,
Wow.
about 40,000 people a month come through the doors, and it's a fantastic facility and a point of pride for the region. It has a food pantry. It's got the largest food distribution for needy families in the state, among YMCA's, and it's really something. It's how every once in a while something will happen that's better than you could have ever expected, and
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
happened with the Y. So,
Wow.
but I got to say this: I'm humbled by that. I look at the Y and I say to myself, "This didn't happen because of me." I was blessed to be the chairman and honored to be the chairman, but the fact is, once the community um, envisioned and interpreted what could happen. Their support was enormous. John Mara of the Giants, enormous supporter. Real estate developer named Richard Branca, unbelievable supporter. A contractor named Pat McGowan, a banker named John Major. These people just came with their best intentions. They came with their treasure. They helped in so many ways. And so having gone through that organization, I was the chairman while we honored a great number of other people. And when they told me that they wanted me to come and accept that award, I was very touched by that. I have to also say, though, that winning the Governor's Award for Travel and Tourism 5 times, uh, I'm the world heavyweight champion at that award. And yeah, so, but you know what? I'm also a little bit of a ringer, right? Again, we have the best travel and tourism client, the Meadowlands Live Convention Visitors Bureau. We have great travel and tourism assets here. So if we don't win that award a lot,
Yeah,
then we're demeaning the importance of the Meadowlands Sports Complex, American Dream, all the stuff that's here. We should
yeah.
win a lot. And so I'd
Right.
be disappointed if we didn't, but I have to say I gloat a little bit. We're gonna win again next year because the World Cup. But how do you
So
not win because of World Cup? You know, our
yeah,
competition is an oyster eating festival. You're not beating the World Cup. So,
right.
but that's been a lot of fun to be involved in the redevelopment of the Meadowlands Sports Complex since I've been representing the Meadowlands Chamber. There's a new stadium, a new racetrack, American Dream,
Wow.
a decommissioning of the Izod Center, all happened. And we did the travel and tourism policy all through that. We attracted the Super Bowl here, four four international soccer games of great importance. The WWE SmackDown's been here twice, so it's been a
Wow.
really good run, Trish. And I appreciate you recognizing that. We stood out here a little bit. Again, I don't take the
Well,
credit myself personally. I have a great team here at Axiom Communications. The Meadowlands Chamber has a fantastic team. The New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority and the Department of Travel and Tourism all contribute to these things. So there's many people involved to make the kind of successes we've had around here.
yeah, the YMCA, that's part of the so where exactly is the YMCA you're talking about? And can anybody go and visit, or do you have to live in that area?
Anybody can be a member. In fact, we have a lot of people who are members who come from out of town because
Oh,
they drop their kids at our daycare. We have a daycare that has 160 kid capacity. It's one of the largest in the state. And so we welcome people from all over to be members and to participate. Um, if you think about where MetLife Stadium is, if
yes.
you go due west about a quarter of a mile across the meadows, you run into our building. We're directly across from Giant Stadium, but between us
Okay.
and Giant Stadium is a marsh, but that's where we are.
Yeah. And I have to also compliment the American Dream. I tell everybody to go to the American Dream. I think it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. When I first went to the American Dream, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm in Beverly Hills all over."
I know you it's
I
astounding. It's
Yeah,
jaw-dropping. It really is.
yeah, it's stunning,
And
and I'm glad that it pulled through. I don't know if it's in the green yet, but I'm glad it's pulling through. I'm glad it's still there, because it's such a beautiful mall, and I love the fact that I'll be able to take my granddaughter, to the Nickelodeon, to the water park,
right.
to spend a day of shopping, to the I mean, he just has so many things to offer, and
It
it's just a great family destination.
truly is. Uh, about 80,000 people a week come.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an amazing, draw for tourists. About 20% of the people who stay in our hotels have some connection to American Dream at this point. Um, I'll tell you, I've walked through it a lot. They're friends of ours. They're a
You
big
do?
part of our travel and tourism marketing effort. Um, and I was walking through, with an airline executive from Ireland, um, and he looked at me and he said, "Ron, if this were in Ireland, you'd fly over to see it." And I
Wow.
think that's, like, an amazing thing to say, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's that amazing a place that somebody
yeah,
from another country is like, "Whoa, this is worth coming here to see." And I
yeah.
think that's true.
Yeah. No, no, I love it. I love it, and, I tell everyone, if you haven't been to American Dream, get to American Dream because it's very important. But I know let's talk a little bit about your faith. I know you're active in your local community, your church community. I am too. How has your faith guided you with your work, and your decisions, when you have to come up with so many harsh or strong decisions, when it comes to community?
I mean, I think I have a pretty strong personal ethic, and I think that that's rooted in being Catholic. Um, I think the example of Jesus is a very important one. It's also a mystery. I wish I could tell you that I truly understood it all, but that's what faith is. I don't have to
Yeah,
understand it. I just have to believe it.
that's right.
So, you know, first of all, I used to be a regular at that 11 o'clock mass, and I haven't been there as frequently as I should be. But I will say that prayer is a part of my daily life. I pray every day. I look at in a meditative way the things that I would like to see come out. I try and be selfless about those outcomes, but I'm also not shy about pricing the value of my services. When I work on something, I expect to be well compensated because I believe that I'm providing, a relatively high level of service. And for that, I expect to be compensated. I don't think that there's a friction or contradiction in being a person of faith and wanting to live well. Um, so, people will look at that and say, including my mom, who wonders why I'm not giving more to charity. Well, you know, the stuffed pork chop
I
is
got I
oblige
got
me.
3 kids, mom.
What am I gonna
I got
do here? So anyway, yeah, look, it's a very personal thing. It's a very private thing. We try not to do in our tradition. We try not to do our alms in public. We try to keep those things that we're contributing between us and
Yeah,
our faith. And so I don't wear all that on my sleeve. But by
yeah,
the same token, I recognize that in order for me to help my YMCA, which helps, we've served over 3 million meals to needy families.
wow.
Right. In order for me to do that, I have to
Yeah,
witness. I have to be out front. I have to say, I'm involved in this organization. Here's what I give to it. I'd like you to join me in that. And
right,
so I resist that. Here I have a PR business. I try to never be quoted in media about the why if I can help it, because it looks like I'm just waving my flag and grandstanding over it and using
right,
it for self-aggrandizement. And I feel very uncomfortable about that. In the meantime, I know I have to use my public relations platform for policy issues on a constant basis, but those aren't charitable acts. And
right.
when we're in our philanthropic role, I think we just have to be driven by what we think, the leader of our church believes. And that is that we should be selfless and we should be supporting those who have less. So I try to do that. I try not to make too big a deal out of it, but you will see me out there once in a while. And I don't want that to be misinterpreted. I'm doing that because if I don't lead, I can't expect people to follow. And I need the followers, right? We need
That's right,
people
that's right,
who
that's
keep
right.
who keep up that level of support. So that's
Yeah.
how I look at that, and I hope that it's interpreted correctly.
It is interpreted correctly, and I feel the same way, and I wish 100% of Americans felt the same way that you did, as opposed to being divided, because I truly believe that if you are a Christian, then you should help your fellow man. Mm, that's not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm seeing. So, I'm gonna let
Though
those
you gotta
people
I I
live in their
feel
own lives, you know?
I use this expression once in a while. I'll give you a few that I think of. First of all, I have felt the hand of God throughout my life. It's undeniable. I can't take credit for a lot of the amazing things that I've been able to experience without God's presence. So, there's no question about that in my mind.
Yep.
Having said that, last fall, I had left the chairmanship of the YMCA, and the YMCA chairmanship is a taxing role. You have to spend a lot of time on it. It takes a lot of energy, and it takes you from other things you might otherwise do. I'd
Yeah.
spent 13 years doing that, and when I stepped away from it, I felt like my job was done. I had a good staff here at Axiom, and I had embarked on my real estate brokerage career, which I got a really strong start on. And I was sitting here last October saying to myself, man, next year is going to be a great year. I've set this up right. I've got a good
Yeah.
staff. I'm going to be able to do a little bit less day to day PR work. I sort of have de emphasized my property rights practice and I'm ready to go. I had one employee come down with cancer, another come down with an autoimmune disease, and the YMCA called and said, we're bankrupt. We need you to come back. So, God's got a funny sense of humor sometimes, I think.
He said, "Ron, You're not done with that.
You might have a plan, Ron, but
That's right.
you're also gonna have to respond to these other things that are gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I think, 20 years ago, I would have taken that all very differently than I did. Um, I just looked at it and said, "Okay, this is the challenge that's put before me. I can do this.
Mhm.
I'll respond to it the way that I should. I'll support my sick employees. I'll take on a little more work myself, and I'll reach out into the community again and say, hey, the YMCA, and I won't go into details, but
Right.
suffered at the hands of a person who was very neglectful and almost hostile to its interests. And we had to go back and fix that. And so I convened a recovery committee with 16 different people, and myself, 17 of us. We all had a different role. And by this December 31st, we'll be even better off than we were December 31st, 2023, when I first resigned, and the Y will be back on its feet. That's a challenge that I took. Now, I could have said, hey, I did my bit at the Y,
Yep. Yep.
but
Yep. You could have said, "I did my time. I'm ready to move on," and,
it would have been awfully hard
I'll
for
let it
me to
go.
go into Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church with that attitude. I'll
That's
tell
true.
you that.
That's true. That's true.
And I got
Father
to be,
Frank would have been going like this, or
I'm
Father
guided by
Ron.
that. Father Frank said an important thing to me one day, and we were talking about immigration, and he said, I want you to think about what Jesus would say if you deny those children at our border entry into the country.
That's
And
right.
while I can't make that into an immigration policy, I have to say, if you're trying to do God's work, you better think about helping people.
That's right. That's right. And finally, let's have some fun now since we talked about some serious issues here. What's something that people would be surprised to learn about you, Ron? Besides just learning that you're a man of faith.
I think there's probably a lot of people out there scratching their head over that.
Yeah, they're like, "What?"
You got to be kidding me.
Okay, guilty
Uh,
pleasure or a fun tradition? Maybe something that, you never put on your resume?
I don't know that I can say people be surprised. I look, I love being in the ocean. Um, I like I like to play golf. I like to
Okay,
spend
stop
time with
right
my
there.
family.
Ocean. Which is your favorite one?
That's such a great question. Um, I have to say that the most satisfying swimming experience I ever had was in, Saint John Cap Ferrat in the south of France. That
Wow.
water is silk. It's unbelievable to swim in that, and, I loved that. But I had a really good time in Interlaken, Switzerland, swimming in the lake there, which is melted snow. It's about 50 degrees. It's real cold, but you get a certain connection from that experience. And obviously, the waters in Hawaii are something very special. So I haven't swum in the Indian Ocean yet. I haven't been to Australia, but the reason to go to those places for me will be an opportunity to experience that water. So I do really love the water. Um, I'm a decent cook. I don't know what would surprise people. Here's one surprise. I set my college's record for the decathlon in 1982, and I've held it ever since.
What?
Yeah. I've had the decathlon record at McAllister College for
Wow.
43 years.
Okay.
And people have tried, Trish.
You put that on your resume?
Nah, it's a little too braggy. But here you're looking at a 255-pound man who was quite a bit thinner when he set the decathlon record, but I do
Yeah.
still have it.
Oh, wow. Well, on that note, we're going to end. Ron, I wanna thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you and everything you do and being so candor with me.
And listen, it's been such a pleasure, and knowing what your role is in the community and the things that you do and that you've brought to our town and to your family and to the region. I think you should have been the interviewee here, not me, because your accomplishments and your soul have meant so much to so many people, and I want to make sure to recognize that and thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much, Ron. Now, if there's anything that you want me to put in the notes, like if you wanna link something with the Meadowlands, if you wanna link anything with the World Cup, Anything that you wanna link, please send that to me, and I'll put it in the notes, so this way people can know about those things because it's important.
Yep.
And again, thank you for coming
Thank you,
on
Tricia,
Right to
and thanks
Independence.
everybody for your time listening.
Thank you, Ron. Bye.